Kelp forests are amongst the most productive ecosystems on Earth. They provide a significant ecological benefit, and they're found globally in intertidal zones in about 25% of the world's oceans. Their populations, however, are declining dramatically, and that's for multiple reasons. There really is minimal protection or conservation efforts today. However, there are the beginnings of restorations happening. Kelp forests were prolific up and down the California coast. The level of decline varies greatly with the location. Some of the locations in California have been reduced by as much as 95% of their original thriving state. Globally, it's projected that kelp is decreasing at about 2% a year. The focus of this presentation is the two dominant species in California, giant kelp and bull kelp. They're amongst the fastest growing organisms on Earth. Giant kelp, or Macrocystis, is a perennial with a thin multi-stiped appearance and many small nematocysts. It has a larger, non-nutrient absorbing holdfast and thrives in water temperatures from 42 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It ranges from Baja to Monterey and can grow as much as 12 to 24 inches in a day. Bull kelp, or Nereocystis, is an annual. It has a single thick stipe, single large nematocyst, likes colder water, and ranges from Point Conception to Alaska, growing as much as 4 inches a day. Kelp reproduces sexually and asexually. Sexual reproduction starts in an area of specialized cells called sorus, which hold the spores. When a plant reaches the surface, the spores are released and carried by the currents until they attach to the bottom. The spores germinate, forming male or female gametes, which release either sperm or egg, and the eggs release a hormone attracting the sperm. Once the fertilized zygote grows to the point of forming a holdfast, it attaches to the bottom. Kelp provides important ecological, economic, and social benefits. Forests are home to an amazing 700 species, ranging from fish to invertebrates to marine mammals and seabirds. It provides economic benefits in a variety of ways, from its recreational draw for tourists and locals, its use in industrial and healthcare products, or as a source of food for humans and animals. Other ecological benefits include the ability to filter excess nutrients and toxins, reducing coastal erosion, and as an effective carbon sequester. When parts of the carbon-absorbing kelp plants break off, they are carried out by currents or winds out to sea, where it eventually drops to the deep ocean floor. There are four primary modes of observations: satellite, airplane, surface with boats, and in water through divers. Satellite tends to be more global and tracks surface or slightly below. Airplane and drone are more regional and local, and boat tends to be local, as does diving. Often the sources are combined for a comprehensive picture. Diving is conducted through citizen scientists who are highly trained in scientific survey and reporting and are the ones studying the kelp forest from the bottom up. There are many nonprofits doing this work on a localized basis. Reef Check Foundation, of which I am on the board of, studies the entire west coast and parts of Baja on an ongoing basis and provides the data to state and scientific groups. In California, the four primary mechanisms for regulation and conservation are through the state agencies, which are Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, and the Ocean Protection Council, through federal mechanisms, which include things like national marine sanctuaries, through a network of marine protected areas, and there's 124 of them in California, which seem to be quite effective. Unfortunately, that only covers about 16% of coastal waters. And then the state leasing program, where there's 87 registered kelp beds. Only about 30 of them right now are leased, and it sort of seems like the program is losing momentum. So what exactly is the issue? Certainly an increase in overall ocean temperatures and acidification, but also regional and local issues. In 2014, two events occurred on the West Coast: the blob, or increasing ocean temperatures above tolerance levels for kelp, and a massive die-off of the sunflower sea star, Pycnopodia helianthoides. The sunflower sea star is California's sea urchin's only real predator. It died off to the point of functional extinction from an unidentified bacterial infection that's known as the wasting disease. These were voracious predators of Kelp's top predator, the purple sea urchin, Strongylocentrotis purpuratus. The purple sea urchins multiplied at an unchecked level, consuming any and all kelp in its path. An additional stressor on the system occurs as a sea urchin clears the kelp beds, removing any source of food. They go into a hibernating state known as zombie urchins, where their internal organs are reduced, thereby destroying its value as a fishery. The scope of this problem is surprisingly bad and not well understood. Restoration is relatively new and sporadic. The challenge with restoration globally is there's a multitude of causes which may differ regionally, requiring multi-tiered solutions. The four most prominent restoration techniques are transplanting, seeding, artificial reefs, and culling. Transplanting requires either young plants from a healthy kelp bed or laboratory-raised plants being planted or attached to a substrate at a target location until that plant itself grows a holdfast and connects. Alternatively, lab-grown very young plants that may be attached to small gravel, which is then placed in a target location in a process known as green gravel. Seeding is the process by releasing spores from a mesh bag that's hung on a reef with the hopes that the spores ultimately fertilize and mature. And the final one, culling, where purple urchins are removed in the hopes that kelp then has the ability to regrow. There are many regional small-scale restoration efforts, but few are coordinated or scalable. Many show signs of progress, but hard to tell the long-term impact. Examples of some of the local organizations involved in kelp restoration would be the Bay Foundation, which does culling, Kelp Forest Alliance, which coordinates efforts and does some mapping, Centro Interdisciplinario de Ciencias Marinas Isla Asunción, they do transplanting and seeding. Reef Check Foundation, on which I am a board member, does culling. And Reef Check has just recently completed a 2-year test in 4 locations in Northern California where they have reduced urchin densities from 7 urchins per square meter to 2 urchins per square meter and have seen a significant increase in the kelp growth over the control. In an attempt to develop a scalable way to roll this process out, Reef Check has employed commercial urchin fishermen for the project. The Ocean Protection Council in California funded a reef check restoration project at 2 locations in Northern California. The graphs demonstrate that when urchin densities were reduced to 2 per square meter, kelp plants increased at significant levels. Clear indication this tactic has promise as a solution. However, further work needs to be done to make the necessary impact. Things like the need to make this a much more scalable solution, need to collaborate with organizations that provide different phases of the restoration cycle, including transplanting or spore seeding. Funding and resources are needed immediately to stem the tide of this incredible loss. And of course, climate change and a sustainable lifestyle will be required on a long-term basis. The magnitude, speed, and implications of the loss of kelp are so drastic that it can be hard to grasp. There is, however, evidence of a path to restoration. It requires additional work and significant resources with commitment, but the potential is great. This is a global issue that requires global and local actions, scalable solutions, coordinated efforts, financing, and mandates. And it requires all this fast. What can we do as individuals? Well, we can act local, volunteer, or even start your own effort. Educate, get buy-in, make it simple, reliable, and action-oriented, and support key legislators and key legislations.